Oh my God, I love the shirt Jay Jaffe's wearing today for our weekly conversation. The Brooklyn Federal League Baseball Club. Tip
The Tip
Tops.
Tops.
Very nice. The Tip Tops. What years were the Tip Tops, Jay? Give me a little idea.
That would be the Federal League was only around in 1914 and 1915.
Unbelievable. All right, so we got to go more than 100 years ago. More than 100
Yeah.
years back. That is a great shirt. Do you have a nice collection of old defunct Brooklyn baseball clubs, or just
I've collected. I think I've collected all of the Brooklyn ones on from Ebbets Flannel. I have the Brooklyn Wonders from the Players League, which is 1890, another one and done league. And I have the Brooklyn Bushwicks. I forget what the provenance of that one is. But I've got both of those. I don't have the Negro Leagues one, but I've got the organized ball ones.
Okay, so Brooklyn did have a team in the Negro Leagues.
I think they had a couple, yeah. It's just they're very various leagues came and went, and I'm sure they were not unrepresented.
Well, that's good to hear. Hey, meanwhile, baseball is finally here. We get pitchers and catchers reporting now, and that's kind of nice. I guess that's really the start that spring training games are right around the corner, a little more than 10 days away. And we're going to start to see baseball again, Jay, kind of what we're excited about right now.
Yeah, it's exciting. At the same time, I think there's also a certain amount of trepidation because once again, we're working under the conditions of a pandemic, and that's higher risk for the players, higher risk for everybody else involved as well. Hopefully, by the middle of the season, the vaccinations will start to ease things. I don't know that this is going to be a normal year though. We've seen that baseball can pull it off with some ups and downs. Hopefully, things go a little bit more smoothly this year. Last week, I wrote about the health and safety protocols that are in place. Hopefully that the players and everybody else involved can heed those, and we can have a safe season.
Well, I'll tell you what's really interesting right now is that in Arizona, they're going to have fans. So believe it or not, you won't be able to watch them practice, but you will be able to actually watch games. And I don't think we have yet a number of fans, but you just shook your head a little bit. Are you surprised that baseball is going to allow fans at spring training games this year?
Yeah, I'm really surprised. I don't think it's worth the risk. Even at reduced capacity, this is a gross cash grab by the owners. A few hundred fans in the ballpark, like you're talking about, in New York State, I think the rule is going to be 10% capacity to start the year, which means 5,000 at Yankee Stadium. And these like 5,000 seat venues in Florida and Arizona, if they were going by that, they'd be hundreds of fans. That's not going to make a drop in the bucket in terms of the finances, and I don't think it really does much for the visuals. I just don't think it's worth it this time. And both Arizona and Florida have been as bad at mismanaging this crisis as just about any state. So this really seems dubious.
I hear you. Well, we'll have to wait and see once we get the numbers exactly how it's going to go. What interests me is that there's a lot of El Pasoans that normally make the trip to Arizona for spring training. And as you know, it's Arizona's biggest tourist attraction. So there's a lot of things I'm wondering that are going to be in play. Number one, will hotels be more reasonably priced because you can't cram 10,000 people into ballparks like you normally can? And number two, would El Pasoans want to make that trip? And that's going to be the interesting thing too is, you got all these fans from all over the country. I wonder how many of them are going to think twice about attending games and maybe not make the trip this year, as opposed to where they normally will go and spend a week to a month out there vacationing for baseball.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it sounds like a similar thought process here we went through with regards to the Hall of Fame, and they postponed the induction weekend yet again. So because of the risks involved. Hotels. I mean, we did one hotel trip last fall. We went out to the tip of Long Island. Hotels are not particularly reasonably priced. I mean, it's just you've got to pay more for the risk that the workers are taking and in doing their jobs, and so it kind of all offsets. I don't think anybody's going to get a bargain on anything, nor should they really expect it.
Speaking of Hall of Fame, let's go there to start, and then we'll go to some of the recent activity when we come back from the Sports Center. I know there's going to be no fans allowed. They're just going to do an indoor event to where they give the plaques indoors. Will it be open to the media? Would you be able to go cover that, especially since you specialize in the hall?
Yeah, I think there might be some amount of media, but I honestly, I think I'm not sure that I would go. I generally, when I go to the induction weekends, I'm there as a fan, to enjoy it. I'm not writing up the induction ceremonies. I mean, I've already done my job, with all the coverage leading up to that. So I probably would not go. I am looking to get to Cooperstown sometime this summer, to see friends and take a spin through the hall. The museum is open. They're doing timed entry, with limited capacity and things like that, which I guess has worked pretty well for them. Um, the area itself has been relatively untouched, by the coronavirus. I think it's something like fewer than 100 cases in the entire county, last year and this year, or sorry, fewer than 100 deaths. I should say. It's the risk of turning it into a super spreader event, that's really the reason for so much caution, and the hall is just not about to allow itself to become, known, as a super spreader event. So, as dismaying as it is, as big a hit as it is to local businesses, I think this was the right move.
How many thousands of people do you think would be there to watch Derek Jeter get inducted?
Well, the initial estimates going into last year, non-pandemic conditions, were that it was going to top the 55,000 that they got from Mariano Rivera, and
Wow,
possibly eclipse the 82,000, that Cal Ripken and Tony Gwynn drew in 2007.
that's
You have a
amazing.
lot, with New York State, you've got a lot of people who can come up just for the day, and get back home by nightfall. They don't have to worry about lodging. That's what we saw when Rivera and Mike Messina were inducted, in 2019. It would have been. I know that the Cooperstown Chamber of Commerce has been like, has had this date circled on the calendar for 5 years, and this has to be a real blow.
All right, more with Jay as we keep things moving here on Sports Talk. But first, right back to Adrian, and let's get this bottom of the hour Sports Center update. Adrian, nicely done. Welcome back, everybody, as we keep things moving here on Sports Talk with Jay Jaffe from Fangraphs.com. You can follow on Twitter at J_Jaffe. All right, so you brought up a moment ago some great names from the Hall, and like guys like Cal Ripken Jr., Tony Gwynn, Mariano Rivera. They all have something in common. They all played their careers with one organization, Jay. And I mentioned this at the beginning of the show because of Ben Roethlisberger's future with the Steelers in doubt, and that he's always played his entire NFL career with the Steelers. So let me ask you the question I threw out there to start the show. How many more extra bonus points do you give athletes, especially in baseball, that go from start to finish, especially in a Hall of Fame career, with one team and one franchise rather than bouncing around multiple clubs?
I mean, it's neat. It's certainly not happening, a whole lot these days because of free agency and because of the economic realities of the sport. It's neat. It's certainly neat when you see it. So it was certainly cool to be here for pretty much the entirety of both, Mariano Rivera and Derek Jeter's careers. You at the same time, I think the homecoming for Andy Pettit, who was also in that 4-4 group, when he left the Astros and came back and then came out of retirement and came back, was also really cool to see. But yeah, I mean, it's, I don't think it has a ton of bearing on a player's Hall of Fame case, but it is a neat thing when a player is so identified with a particular fan base.
Well, I'll say this: it's rare. You're right about that, but ultimately, I mean, Mike Trout could be the next great that could do it. Maybe he spends his entire career with the Angels. Who knows if he doesn't go back home to the Northeast and spends the rest of his career in with them in this era of sports where free agency is a big deal. Players still get traded a lot. It says something when you can survive and flourish and be with one organization that whole time.
Yeah, it takes certainly a lot of consistency throughout the course of a career. It takes some good luck. It obviously takes some good economics as well. I think, if you're a big market team, you probably have a greater shot at retaining your guy if he's a superstar. Certainly the Yankees are a case, and you look at the contrast. Albert Pujols, leaving for what was a record-setting contract at the time, or near record-setting contract at the time. It was weird to see him move on, but the Cardinals made the absolute right call when you see what happened to his career. I don't know that we're going to see a lot of these though. Certainly, like you said, Trout might be the next one, but the inevitable economics, especially in this day and age, I think are always going to be lurking in the shadows there.
It's also possible that if Kershaw eventually gets into Cooperstown, he spends his whole career with the Dodgers.
He is, I think for him, the fact that he's probably not going to pitch that much longer, if you kind of read between the lines of all these things he's said in recent interviews, that his contract is up after this year. He's not sure he's going to come back yet. My gut says he will. I think he's going to get to those milestones, the 200 win milestone and the 3,000 strikeout milestone. So we're probably looking at one more contract, but there's always somebody who's going to posit that, he's going to go home to Texas and pitch for the Rangers or the Astros or something like that. And it's like, no, it's probably not going to happen. It's probably Dodgers or bust for him. Starting over in a new organization is a tough thing. It's always a little weird to see that guy in new colors.
How close do you think he is to Cooperstown right now?
Oh, I think if he retired today, he'd be in. I think the World Series was probably the last thing. I mean, statistically, he's not really. He's from a Jaws standpoint, he's right there at the standard. From a traditional standpoint, the fact that he's short of 200 wins, he would be a real like a Koufax like exception. But I don't think there's any doubt that he's going in.
Okay. By the way, great analogies, especially going Dodgers, because I wanted to ask you about Justin Turner. I didn't think the Dodgers would re-sign Justin Turner after they just broke the bank on Trevor Bauer, but what do I know? What's another $30-something million for 2 years, as long as you can bring back your third baseman that clearly is part of that core group of terrific offensive players.
Yeah, I mean, and he has been kind of a big guy for them in the clubhouse, in the community. He's from the area. Unfortunately, his actions at the end of the World Series last year with the coming out after having tested positive really overshadow that, and I think kind of make this kind of sort of an awkward celebration. It's going to take a while for that to pass, and there were a handful of people in the organization who got infected after that, and could be traceable to him. So that's an unfortunate sidelight to this. But from a competitive standpoint, the Dodgers, this makes them almost bulletproof in terms of their lineup. A whole lot's going to have to go wrong for them not to make the playoffs, and right now they're the odds-on favorite in the National League.
Were you surprised that the Mets signed Kevin Pillar, which essentially kind of shuts the door on maybe a multi-year contract with Jackie Bradley Jr.?
Not at this point. I mean, I wrote about them signing Albert Almora Jr. Last week, and that was already, I think, they were already saying that they weren't going to get Bradley. Pillar and Almora, in theory, I guess, makes for a platoon. Pillar's defensive numbers are way down. He's a good enough hitter against lefties that you could maybe justify that slice of playing time, but this is just dog meat, compared to everything else that Jackie Bradley Jr. is not a guarantee. He had a good year with the bat, but he's a below average offensive producer. His defensive metrics are trending down. I get the reservations. At the same time, just a good center fielder who can go get it is just a major upgrade on shoving like Brandon Nimmo or into center field part of the time, which is probably still part of the plan as well. I don't know exactly what they're doing here, and I know that Mets fans to a certain degree are disappointed that they didn't make as big a splash in free agency as initially hoped. But then again, they got Francisco Lindor, so we'll see what they do this with that falling into their lap.
Reaction to Andrew Benintendi going to the Royals in that 3-team deal?
He was always, I think, overhyped as a prospect because he played for the Red Sox. Power's only kind of mid-range. I think you want a little bit more production out of that spot. But good buy low guy for the Royals. I don't think they really gave up much. I don't really understand what Boston's doing in getting rid of him. I think he's still cheap enough to me that that I think he's worth seeing if he bounces back, if you believed in him that much originally. But maybe this opens the door for them bringing back Bradley, which makes some sense too.
Any reaction to Jake Arrieta going back to the Cubs and James Paxton going back to the Seattle Mariners?
Yeah, I wrote about Arrieta and the Cubs. Boy, all of his metrics have just trended downward since the last time since he left. I think that his strikeout rate has plummeted. He's had a hard time staying healthy. He was a big guy for the Cubs, though. He really, turned not only into a reliable major league pitcher, but into an ace there. Won a Cy Young, helped the championship. I think was a good behind the scenes guy as well. I think for his work ethic, and I think that's part of the reason they brought him back. I hope that there's more life in his arm than his last couple years in Philadelphia showed. But his ERA has increased in 5 straight seasons, and that's a tough trend to live down. As for Paxton, we got to see him a lot here in New York when he was healthy. Very good pitcher when he is healthy. Staying healthy has been a real challenge for him. He thrived in Seattle when he was healthy there. I hope he gets back to doing that again. I just want to see the guy pitch because he's had a lot of breaks that have kept him off the field.
I hear you. All right, let's wrap it up with your beer pick of the week. First, I'll give you mine. This is in the fridge right now. It is from Odell Brewing Company, Jay. It's called Bulletproof Bourbon Barrel Stout. Now,
nice.
This thing checks in at 13%, and it's in collaboration with and aged in Old Elk bourbon barrels from the When Old Elk Distillery. So this has just been, in my opinion, getting better and better over since I first put it in the fridge, and I'm super excited about it. There's got to come a time when you stop with the bourbon aged stouts and you wait till next year. So we just had snow on Sunday. The weather is still kind of fluctuating into the 40s and 50s. So I still have that tail end before it goes into the 70s and 80s to enjoy it. But you're colder than we are. And I think you're going to stay along the same lines that we would have as far as our beer pick, correct?
Yeah. So Other Half is known for their IPAs. They're doing a past and present series here where they're trying some other styles. And this one here is their robust London Porter. And we saw the photos of this on social media, my friends and I, and we were like, oh my God, I got to get some of that. Got to get some of that. Got to get some of that. Just one track mind. So I'm texting my friend who works, runs the beer aisle at a kind of high end grocery store in the East Village in Manhattan. He's going to set some aside for me. Then I see that Other Half is a couple days later. Other Half was finally selling it through their site. Which this is a brewery. This is a brewery that's renowned for the pain in the ass, go stand in line when they do their can drops every couple of weeks type of place before the pandemic. And I've aged out of that demographic long ago. I did that I think maybe once in the last 7 or 8 years. Fatherhood just does not mix well with that. But so anyway, it went up, and as soon as it went up, I got a case of mixed case of Other Halves, and I got a 4-pack of this, and I knowing that I've got more on the way. And I cracked open one last night, and damn, it was good. It's a London Porter, so it's a little bit lighter in terms of viscosity than some of the other porters. Like, it's not a Founder's Porter. It's lighter than that. Traditional Maris Otter malt and East Kent Golding hops. Very characteristic. A lot of chocolate, kind of a light chocolate up front. Good roasty bitterness on the back. Just a really well done beer. I wish they would make this a regular thing, because I love my porters, and I can never get enough of them.
What does it check in at percentage wise?
I think it's about 5 something.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I held on here. I had it up here on this page here. 6% actually. So that's actually kind of high for a porter.
Still enjoyable, no doubt about it. Well, enjoy the rest of them, that's for sure. Jay, terrific stuff as always. Look forward to getting a chance to do it right back here next week.
All right. Thanks a lot, Steve. Stay warm.
You as well.